Hello there, and welcome to Chapter 5. As I said, I like to complain about this book every now and then, and this is one of the chapters, but there are some questions on the midterm about Chapter 5. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to gloss over or skim certain points you really need to make sure you read this chapter. And the quizzes at the end of the chapter on Cengage, as I've said before, I'm not grading them, but they're great review material. Just try them out. It's not going to hurt you one way or another. So, adapting to your audience. Now, again, I believe I talked about this before, the idea of the connection between the speaker or the performer, whatever it might be, and the audience. Remember, most of the times you are in the audience. Only occasionally are you the presenter, the speaker. Or maybe if you're in drama classes or theatrics, some of you may be in choirs or sing or perform. And so you get this already. There's a connection that needs to be made with the audience, and you have to work with the audience in ways that aren't always particularly obvious. So, anyway, let me give it a try here. All right. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. I can work my computer. Okay, so what's an audience? Well, an audience is the people sitting out there in the room listening to you, or your colleagues at work, or again, maybe you play an instrument and that's an audience. They're the people listening to you. All right. And of course, the book breaks it down into very analytical ideas. It's the intended recipients of the speaker's message. Well, duh. All right. All right. And the connection is critical. Another, well, duh. If you don't connect with the audience, whatever you do just isn't going to mean anything. Now, if we were in the classroom, oh my goodness, this would be so different. This would be so different because you would be speaking to your peers, other students, people who are essentially in the same proverbial boat as you. And so it's easy to connect with an audience like that. Now, at work, if you have to give a talk at work about something, you may have different age groups, different ethnicities, different abilities, whatever it might be. So, yes, indeed, out in the quote unquote real world, it is a little bit different. And let's explore that for just a few minutes. As I said, I'm going to try to keep this at a reasonable length and not go over too much of the detail in here. You can look at the book. Okay. All right. Appeal to the interest of the viewers. Well, obviously, if you get up to give a talk to a group of eighth graders and you want to talk about life insurance, that's going to be a tough sell to the eighth graders, isn't it? Okay. So this is another so incredibly obvious point that I don't think we need to say too much about it. If you're giving a presentation and you don't appeal to what these people are interested in, again, speech is going to fall flat. Now, paying attention to feedback. What kind of feedback? Normally, when you're giving a speech, the audience just sits there and looks at you, right? Ah, yes, but there is a connection, a non-verbal connection, as it says right here. Do people look interested? And this is the hardest part of teaching online. I'm looking at a little rectangle of my gray mustache right here, and I have no idea how you're reacting to my presentation. That's the hardest part of doing this. And I know, and a few of you commented on this, how difficult it is to stand in front of the camera and do your dramatic reading. You can't, it's hard to get the emotion going. But again, when you're in a situation where you can see the people you're talking to, pay attention. Do they look interested? Are they watching you? Are they playing Candy Crush on their phones? Does anybody play Candy Crush anymore? You get my point. You can see through nonverbal expressions whether or not you're connecting with your audience. So you need to look at the people you're talking to. It's all about eye contact. All right, well, what else? Oh, okay, let me just run through this list. Identify commonalities. Okay. Good morning. My name is Ray Shabinsky, and today I'm going to talk to you about the importance of savings, saving money. Now, I know you're all college students, and you're looking at this old guy on the screen thinking, you know, what's he know about my situation? I can't save a penny. Well, I was a college student once, a long time ago. In fact, I kept being a college student. And I know, I was busy. I was working part-time jobs. I ended up getting married in graduate school. So, yeah, there's all kinds of things pulling on you. And I know that I was always, like all college students, broke. All right, I'm trying to establish a commonality here. Something that we all have that a shared experience, basically. Anything you can do to establish this shared connection will make your presentation a great deal stronger. Also, I just established some credibility too, didn't I? Talking about the fact that, yeah, I remember when I was a college student, I was broke. And I might go on in this speech to talk about how I still decided I was going to save $10 a week. It wasn't much, but at least it made me think about savings. Okay, I'm establishing credibility. Supporting materials. We'll talk about this a lot more when we get to the informative and persuasive speech. The next speech that you'll be giving is the self-introductory speech. And you still need to support what you're talking about, but not in the same way that you would in a more formalized presentation. Appropriate language, what's that mean? Don't swear? I don't know. Depends on the audience, doesn't it? Now, if you have a propensity for grandiloquentious confabulation, you like to use big words, that could be a problem, right? Okay. Can you use slang? I'm going to talk a lot more about language in another, I think it's chapter 9, the use of language. And it really is very important. But for the moment, just remember, use language that, again, connects with the audience. And let me get to the what the heck audience segment means later. All right. Well, here are the audience segments. Okay. Basically, it's the demographic breakup of your audience. What's the age group? Are they all about the same age? That's kind of the situation in the classroom, isn't it? Uh, uh, Gender. Is it mainly a group of women, a group of men? Is it mixed? Ethnicity, education, religion? You can go on and on. All of these are important factors in making a connection with your audience. Let's talk about religion for just a second. A minister knows that the congregation that's in his church already agrees with him, basically, in the importance of that particular. Maybe it's a Baptist church or a Catholic church, or maybe it's a synagogue or a mosque. That these people already have that commonality, in this case, a belief. You might be in a situation where it's totally different. All right. How about other disability? I'm going to talk about that just briefly. I've mentioned that I used to direct planetariums, and when I was at the University of Arizona, we had many, many groups coming into the planetarium for shows, of course. That's what we did. And I remember the first time that I had a group of kids with hearing disabilities. And so we had to set up a situation where I could get my talk. Remember, this is a planetarium. It's dark. There's stars overhead. We had to get set up a situation where someone who was signing could still be seen by the audience. So I had to big time adaptation. I even gave some programs to people with seeing disabilities, blind. Uh, Talk about a challenge. So you bet, disabilities are something that you need to take into account in certain situations. Social class, is it rural, urban, uh, relationship statuses? Again, I'm going to come back to some of these, and you can browse through them in the chapter. It's an awful lot of stuff. Uh, this book is written to really truly encompass the idea that somebody taking this class someday may really need these skills in their job or their lifestyle. And so this chapter goes into, as I say, a lot of detail that might help you. And here we go. Here's some of it. How do you figure out who your audience is? Well, personal observation. You can walk into a room. Oh, everybody's pretty much the same age. They're younger than me. Ah, yes. Oh, another example. I think I mentioned that I taught Latin once, and I had this great idea that I was going to have my Latin class uh, translate the lyrics of what I thought was a very well known song. Okay, so I translated part of the song as time goes by into Latin, gave it to my students thinking everybody knows this song. They were so confused. Okay, so I didn't use my personal observations to think, okay, I need to, if I'm going to do this, I need to translate a song that they're familiar with, not that I'm familiar with. So I didn't connect very well, did I? Okay, so got to think about these things. Consulting people familiar with the audience. Okay, you've been asked to talk about your job to a group of people. Ask obvious questions to those people making the request. Well, who is it I'm talking to? Tell me a little bit about them. And of course, you could always look things up online, I suppose. All right, I'm going to skip that one. All right. Now then, there are some terms in the chapter, and I've got the page here. Chapter 5, page 85 is the one I'm looking at. Is this 86 on the back? Yeah, okay. Standpoints, values, attitudes, and beliefs. Okay, let's talk about standpoints. What the heck is a standpoint? Let me read directly from the chapter. A standpoint. Standpoint refers to the mental place from which an individual views, interprets, and evaluates the world. In other words, it's what's in your head. Not only you as the speaker, but of course, those people that are listening. What are their preconceptions? What are their, if you're, we just went through a tumultuous political season. And of course, you know, there, there were the groups of ultra conservatives listening to speeches. There were groups of ultra liberals listening to speeches. Those are standpoints. And they also break it down into value, something that's truly important to you. An attitude is maybe just the way you feel about something. Attitudes are easier to change than value when you're trying to persuade people. Beliefs are very much like value. These, in fact, in some ways, they're even deeper than values because these are the ideas and concepts we grow up with. If you can have a little bit of an understanding on what the values, attitudes, and beliefs of your audience may be, it will make your job a lot easier with your presentation. And of course, it depends on the presentation. If you're giving an informative speech about the woolly mammoth, okay, you try to make it interesting and fun for a general audience, but values, attitudes, and beliefs may not play into your presentation ever nearly as much as if you give a persuasive speech about cloning the woolly mammoth, bringing it back from the dead. Is this a good thing? Ooh, all of a sudden we're starting to deal with values, attitudes, and beliefs, aren't we? So sure, they play into all of this. All right, now this uh, PowerPoint, I'm using the publisher's PowerPoint. You can see down at the bottom there. I'm using the publisher's PowerPoint for this one. And now they're going into ways you can collect this information. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, partly because in reality, in your lifetime, uh, you may never have to do this. You may end up giving a speech. In fact, I think all of you will find yourself having to get up and talk in front of a group sooner or later. But it may not be this in depth. But sure. So here's some of the things. Okay, collecting information about demographics and the psychographics. Oh, is that a movie? Did I see that? That was an Alfred Hitchcock movie, wasn't it? Okay. So, all right. So there are different kinds of questions you can ask. And you as students, get bombarded with this kind of stuff all the time. Okay, there's closed-ended questions, open-ended questions, combinations of these things. How do you get a questionnaire out if you want to learn more about your audience? And again, in a classroom, we could do this if we were in the classroom just for practice. We could do a little questionnaire. But again, if you're out in I keep saying the real world, the classroom is real world, but out beyond the classroom, how do you get this information? How do you gather it? All right, so here's some examples. Close-ended question. By the way, there's some practical uh, applications to this in everyday life. Really, truly, there is. The way you even ask people where you want to go have lunch. Think about it. Okay, so do you have a television in your bedroom? Yes or no? Yeah, closed. So that's obviously a close-ended question. There's either yes or no. Okay, let's turn it into something, an open-ended question. What changes, if any, would you make in our school's basic course requirements? Well, obviously that requires a whole lot more than just yes or no. So open-ended. Let's combine them. Do you have a television in your bedroom? Yes or no? Oh, and then you have to say why or why not. All right. I have a television in my bedroom, so I would put yes. Why? I would have to say I'm not really sure because I've never turned it on, which is absolutely true. I don't know why I put it in there. All right, so audience research information, types of audience data, statistics, direct quotes. Oh, let's see if there's some examples here. All right, statistics. Statistics are fabulous for connecting with your audience and creating credibility. Remember when I talked about ethos, logos, and pathos? Logos is all about structure and organization in your speech, reason, logic. That's what it means. Okay. Ethos is that credibility. Does your audience trust you? Do they believe you as you're talking? Oh man, statistics are a great way to help establish credibility. Um, uh, and then, of course, pathos, uh, which is not part of the statistics, is all about emotion. I'll get to that. Okay, so here's an example. Okay, today I'm going to give a speech on why you should recycle. Did you know, let's see if I can do this. Did you know that 10% of the world's oil supply is used to make plastic bottles and plastic bags? So be sure you use recyclable and reusable bottles, all right, and take cloth bags to the grocery store. By the way, that's a real statistic. That's real. All right. So uh, there's an example of statistics. Now in the slide, it says more than 90% of the people sitting in this room said that. Well, how do you know what they said? It's because you gathered data beforehand. That also increases a tremendous amount of uh, uh, credibility on your part if you can tell them almost everyone in this room agrees that. All right. Okay, direct quotes. It's the biggest scam out there. Okay, whatever it might be. So there's an example of everyone agreeing. In this case, a weight loss program. All right, now I've already talked about this in one of my other presentations, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Physical location. If you're asked to give a talk somewhere, go look at the room. Go see if there's equipment and you need to set up, or if you need help getting set up. The occasion. Is it a celebration? Is it an informative lecture like I'm giving right now? What That's what occasion means. The time of day. Now, I've noticed that when I teach 8 o'clock classes, I'm not really a morning person, but I'm okay once I get up and drink like a gallon of coffee and take a couple of showers. I can do it. And I've noticed in my 8 o'clock classes that people are just tired, and I totally understand. And so I don't quite get the feedback and audience connection in an 8 o'clock class that I do in an 11 o'clock class. I find that after mid-afternoon classes, people are tired and they've eaten lunch and they're not as responsive either. I've also found that evening classes are pretty good. So there you go. Time of day really affects the way your audience feels and the way they may react to you. Uh, okay, is it indoors, outdoors, online? Oh, um, so you got to figure it out. And if you can, use the setting to help you with the presentation. All right. Oh, what else? Okay, the occasion. Oh, voluntary audience want to be there. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. And I get this. Um, when I'm teaching in a classroom, I have what I consider to be a captive audience. Now, yes, you've all agreed to be there. You've signed up for the class. You paid for the class. You're a captive audience. Now, I used to give talks at dinners, and that's an experience. I don't do that much anymore, but I used to do that a lot. When I was directing planetariums and stuff, the Rotary Club or something. Can you come and talk about Pluto or whatever? Okay, that's a voluntary audience. Those people are in that audience because they came because they wanted to be there, not because they had signed up for it or that it was mandatory, a requirement. And so I get a very different reaction from an audience like that, and I have to think differently about that. So voluntary audience versus the captive audience. All right. Time of day. I've already mentioned this. What is going on? All right. I've already mentioned this. Right before breakfast, after lunch. It's been a long day. Yeah, you get it. All right. Credibility. Let me do something here. So credibility. Uh, the audience perception of a speaker. Again, this goes back to uh, ethos, and I don't need to go through all of this because you have already watched my lecture on ethos, logos, and pathos. Competence. Do you believe this person knows what they're talking about? Can I trust this person? What is I can't say it, dynamism. In other words, do they get excited about what they're doing? Or they just sit there and talk like this through the whole speech? Was a really awful way to have to listen to someone. And sociability, do you feel like you want to go have a drink with this guy? I don't know. But this credibility is all about ethos, and you can refer back to my presentation on ethos, pathos, and logos if you have any questions on this. Okay, developing credibility. All right, yeah, speaker credibility. I've already talked about this, so you can look at it. More than anything, is you have to establish yourself as being credible. I did give this example. You're listening to me, and I hope I have some credibility in your eyes, but you've never met me in person. You know, you have to break rule number 2 and assume that because I'm teaching this class, I have the credentials. Yes, I do, in fact, have an advanced degree in communications. I've taught communications for a long time, and the college hired me because of that. So I've got built in credibility, but you still have to establish that credibility. So, uh, again, you can refer back to my my lecture on that. All right, oops, let's see. Oh, and I came to the end of okay. I thought there was another slide. I'm done with it. All right. So there you go. Uh, so adapting to your audience, more than anything, what you need to remember in adapting to your audience for your purposes is most of the adapting will be based on uh, those nonverbal cues from your audience. If you're at work and you can see people, you're explaining something and you can see people or just have a puzzled look on their face, slow down. Don't just keep barreling ahead. In that kind of situation, you can even stop and say, I sense a little confusion. And you can ask for questions in the middle of your presentation. You know, teachers do that all the time. Sometimes in a very formal setting, you don't have that option, but you can still sense that the audience just isn't getting what you're trying to tell them. What do? You have to do a quick reset in your mind and try to deal with all of this. So there you go. That's chapter 5. It has some good points in it. There are a few questions on the midterm about this. Once again, I would highly recommend after you read the chapter, do the little quiz because it's great practice. So try it out. There you go. Adapting to your audience. And I hope you got something out of it. And again, without being able to get any feedback directly, it's tough. But there we are. So make sure you read the chapter, and thank you very much for listening again.